Can you see it, Kim?
Is it the same link as it was last year?
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Do you see people on there? It's something.
Oh, okay, so you can see it now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, for anyone else besides Kim who's on there, we apologize. We didn't realize this wasn't working. So we have it started now.
The consent items. Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the consent items. We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve the consent items. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent items are approved. Look like we have any correspondence this evening. So we'll move into public forum. Whoever like to go first, or
I can go first. Chris Roby, I just wanted to tell everybody, hi, I am running for school board, make it official, because I know I haven't had a chance to tell everybody, and I wish everybody the best as we get closer to the election.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sue, you want to go next? Let's go right down the line.
I'm fine with that, John. You know, I'll go along with whatever order you want to have here. What I sent in the email to you today, normally I pull up like one report at a time or one site, but this particular case, U.S. News has actually made some improvements into what they're reporting with regard to K-12 schools in the country. And this had a nice synopsis of multiple factors in addition to state rankings. So I just wanted to point out a couple things on there and then get to a link I didn't include because I already had too much information I thought on this one for an email. One of them is the fact that when it comes to Iowa, we're ranked #1 in terms of percent of students that are actually graduating. But when it comes to Iowa with regard to preparation for education after high school, we're ranked #40. We're also ranked right in the middle of the pack for the NAEP assessments, that would be the national ones. And without going into detail, I'll just kind of list 4 factors that have an influence on that. One of them, of course, is the curriculum. We only have one curriculum element that meets the national standards, and that's math. There is also an element in terms of the materials that are being used for each of the courses, and that also includes the math. And I had a big lesson in that in trying to find really good content to use at home. And we finally found some this summer. We just ordered it through Amazon, but it took a lot of looking to find something that actually has activities students will mentally engage with. They'll learn from it, they test back, okay, and we'll see how this plays out. But we got it for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So you've got the curriculum and the content that's in there, the materials that are actually selected for the content. Then you've got the teaching methods that are actually being used. So if you still have teachers that are not using the most effective methods for concepts, then that's going to reduce how much you can help students to learn. Of course, the 4th factor would be the students that have no control over any of the first 3 factors that are in there whatsoever. And as I mentioned before, you acknowledge they all have things going on in their life. They could be being bullied, they could have some family issues, they have lots of things that could be going on that could interfere with their learning, and some expanded support systems, which get more complicated in small towns, I understand that, become really important to that. But the other important thing of those factors that I wanted to point out to you is the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic and Community Development. Now they're international, they have a lot of things that they do, but one of them is the International PISA exams for 15-year-olds. And I could send you a link on that, but they got a great narrative on there that explains it's not necessarily graduating from high school that is the top important factor. It's the skills that you have at the time, which is what makes these other factors I just mentioned so important to the students. And internationally, the standards are higher than even the standards in this country. And we're not up there. So we have a long ways to go that we could be improving, but the first thing would be actually recognizing the need to improve. We learned one thing this last year when there were a lot of classes out there online. When we weren't finding the materials that we thought would be really helpful to mentally engage students, we went out to the states that are ranked higher than Iowa to see what they had out there online, because you had so many that were out there, and we found some wonderful materials. So that kind of got us through the last school year, which is why it took till this summer to actually go looking for stuff on our own. We had a chance to look at some really neat things out there that mentally engaged students and taught them an awful lot. Just one last comment here. Businesses, you know, are concerned with the ability to have higher level thinking and problem solving skills. The military is absolutely stressed to capacity. I'm fortunate enough to teach for a university that's had one of the ones with a contract with the Department of Defense since the late 1940s after World War II. But in the last few years, within 10, they've been requiring all universities with whom they have contracts to get up to international standards because they're very concerned about the security of the country and the skill levels of the people that are in the military. So the ones that are actually getting college degrees, and I do have some in my classes that I teach online, we have gotten everything in all degree programs up to international standards, and you learn what you need to have in there, the activities you need to be doing, how to try to mentally engage them. We're all still learning how to go about that. So I just wanted to point this out. Don't you have like a state school board meeting or something coming up in November? That's usually November. Boy, if it's possible to discuss any of this, and I'd be happy to send the OECD links to you too, with anybody out there to see what might be possible to improve the whole situation for the state. The state itself would be better off, as would the lives of the graduates of our schools here. That's all I wanted to point out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public forum?
You got it?
Yep.
You can go ahead.
I thought we were going down the line.
All right.
So, good evening. My name is Christy Webeck, and I have two topics that I would like to request discussion from the board and administration this evening. First, given the recent incidents of violence from 2 weeks ago at Baxter Community School District, I'm wondering what the response plan is, the resources, and the training for such incidents, especially if there's an active threat made against the school or an active shooter scenario. What are the resources Baxter Community School has for responding to student violent outbursts or threats? Are the staff trained to respond to a physical threat? And what is the regular cadence for such training? And as a school district, should we be considering additional resources like a school resource officer, a security guard, to show presence in the school to deter such acts of violence that happen in the school district on a fairly regular basis? Second, over the course of the past two board meetings, we've discussed concerns about staffing levels related to recruiting and retention. This evening, my question is specifically what is being done to address those staffing concerns, specifically with paraprofessionals who are needed in class for students with IEP requirements. Thank you for your time to respond to these concerns and questions for the Baxter Community School.
Hi, I'm Zachary Archer. I'm representing the BEA. at this meeting. I'm also coming as a advocate for the K through 12 music program. Recently, I was asked a question along the lines of, do we know how much we're spending and how much money we're getting for the fine arts program at Baxter? And so I decided to look into it a little bit, and I decided to look at the audits of Baxter's school building for 2019 through 2020, since we don't have one for previous year. And I was just worried and making comparisons between things like the Athletics Association or athletics expenditures versus what was being expended, what expenditures were being made for music programs. And on football alone, expenditures were about $30,000 and music was $10,000, less than $10,000 actually. And by, my estimates, probably about 40 kids, 50 kids in both of them. We're spending about $500 more per kid on football than we are in the music program. And that's not even including the elementary program, music program as well. That's just including secondary. So I just wanted to open up a forum for discussion and just kind of see what can be done about that, because there have been some experiences I've had within the school building as a teacher, as a music teacher, that have been frustrating to deal with. Things like trying to fund elementary program things that are necessary, trying to have the IHSMA approval, which took longer than I anticipated it taking, things along that line. So I just wanted to understand some of the inequality between the music program. And if you want to talk about, getting better leaders, better critical thinkers, that's a lot of music, creating creative thinkers, critical thinkers, things like that. And if you want to grow the music program, which I know when I came in here, I was told very heavily that there was a lot of support for music. It just doesn't seem to be that apparent at this point in time to me, considering the amount of money that is being given to the music program compared to the athletics and just football alone, even if you want to look at that. So I just wanted to open up that discussion and advocate for some sort of change to the music program so that it is less frustrating for both me and the band teacher that are dealing with heavy frustrations and burnout this year, especially with the amount of work and time that we have to put into our program without much coming out of it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just follow up on that, Michael, can you?
Well, I haven't looked at the accounts, but I can tell you that they're different accounts. The athletics comes from the activity fund, and very much of the football expenditures come from fundraising done by the football team. There's also a fine arts boosters, and they do their own fundraising. They support the fine arts and dance, and the athletic boosters and the fine arts boosters are two different entities. So it's a completely unfair comparison to say it's not coming from the same accounts. The district is not paying $30,000 for football while they're paying $10,000 for music. It's just two different accounts. It's just completely different accounts. So we can have a conversation sometime. Here's probably not the place because we don't have debates during public forum. We just listen.
Right.
But I just want to make it clear that the Booster Club supports a lot of the expenditures for athletics. It does not come from the general fund.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
And then Michael, as far as like Christie's questions, I know you were involved in our plan and that, so
Yeah.
I mean, can you share that with
Yep,
her?
you bet. And Christy and I and Mr. Luther and her husband met last week and talked about it. But we do a safety training. We have we've done some active shooter drills with our staff and with our students when, and we don't do it every year, but we do training with our staff, and there's requirements of at the beginning of the year, or once a year you have to do training. So So we do that. We actually did our evacuation drill today with the kiddos. We did a fire drill and then we evacuated to our safe location. But there are some concerns, like what we talked about with Christy and her husband. We understand that our police force is taxed also, but we don't have them up here as often as we'd like. They've been really responsive when we do call. I don't want this to shed any not positive light on our city council or our school or our police or anything like that. We're very thankful for the help that we've gotten. They're taxed too, so they just aren't up here as often, but when we need them, they have always been supportive. We did have an incident a couple weeks ago. I called them and they were here within minutes to help us deal with it. And if our local police aren't available, we can call the Jasper County and they're here to help. But I mean, we would love to partner more with the city to get people in our building and helping us out. Just even on just getting to know the kids, so they're not only here in times of crisis, that they're here to build a relationship with our students and our staff. But yeah, we update our safety plan regularly. We take a look at it. We had to upload, like, remember maybe 2 years ago, I would go every month and we rewrote our plan. And so we had to submit that to the state. But it's definitely something we want to, keep a look at. And, we need to do a better job. I've said even just this week again, we need to do a better job making sure our doors are shut. Sometimes you come past and kids have propped doors open, and if you don't see it, down by the lunchroom, sometimes those doors get propped open by kids. So we just need to all of us, when we see those open, we shut them. Because, do we think it's ever going to happen here? No. But does everybody think it's not going to happen at their school? Yes. And it happens places. So, just even with the incident in Texas a couple weeks ago, you just have to stay vigilant. So, it's definitely on our radar.
We had worked with the former police chief, training up a program to get an SRO, some extra funding, but
He's left.
it's moved on, so it's kind of.
I've actually heard where they're ending the SRO programs in other schools.
We have had an SRO in the past. Steve Wright was for a couple of years.
But I know Chief Hicks was really pursuing it, and then when he moved, it kind of dropped off. So I don't know if the next chief will be able to pick that up again. That would be fantastic. We would love to partner with them. But as we all know, the budget's the budget, so we can't afford to hire a full-time police officer.
And at that time, when he was working on there was some grant.
Yeah.
Right. I don't
He was
know if
working at the
that's still
state.
available or
Right.
not, but yeah, so.
And to answer maybe the paraprofessional
Oh,
question, because we're obviously looking for paraprofessionals all the time.
Yeah, we advertise on our Facebook page, we advertise on our website, we put it out.
Advertise on Teach Iowa.
Teach Iowa, we're required by law to put it on Teach Iowa, and we're always, asking people, hey, if you know anybody. Actually, Rob and I just had a really good conversation today about some creative ways. I met with Mrs. Brown, the BEA president, yesterday. We meet the day before the board meetings, just every month, just to kind of see how things are going and keep in touch. And they had some creative ideas of, could we possibly use high school kids to volunteer or pay, like, I don't know if we could pay them, right? We don't know. We have to work out those details, but could we use high school kids who are interested in becoming teachers, who have a free period? Would they want to be in a classroom, like, every day, fourth period or whatever? So we are really trying to think, how else can we do this? Because it's a critical shortage, and it's everywhere. Every superintendent meeting I go to, I'm sure Jason and Rob can attest to, every principal meeting they go to, that's the number one topic of conversation. What do we do about staffing shortage? It's just constant. Like, it's everywhere. It's not just here. And we just had a group chat or a group email the other day, 2 days ago, that was asking about what if we raise pay for subs? Would that help? And people all around us, we all said how much we pay our subs. And then we all said, we're just trying to brainstorm ideas. And a district, one of our bordering districts said, we raised our sub pay last year with hopes of attracting more teachers. So it didn't make a bit of difference. There's nobody there to do the job. We talked about, what about if we hired a full-time sub? They said, well, that's great, except for that, then that takes one more sub out of your sub pool. And most of the subs, if they wanted to work full-time, they could write their check. They could work anywhere. They just don't want to. They want to be able to come and go as they please. So that doesn't really solve it. We did have a conversation with a colleague that some of the colleges are starting to look at partnering with schools with a grow your own program, they call it. And we were actually pretty intrigued by this. So maybe if you have some paras that are really promising, that look like they really could move into a teaching role, they can continue to work full time, and then they can take night class, like one night a week and then on weekends, and they cap the tuition cost for them. But then at the end of 4 years, they can have like a full-time teaching position. Then they can hopefully come back and work in your district. So they also said, looking at kids who potentially want to go into teaching. If there's a kid who maybe doesn't want to move out, wants to maybe live at home, they could do the same thing. They could work full-time in your district as a para all those years that they're going to school. And then when they're done, you've kind of built a loyalty there, and then they'll stay. So like universities, and I don't know if Sue maybe knows this too, are doing their best to try and figure out how to solve this problem creatively, because we can't keep doing what we're doing. Enrollment in teacher ed programs is down all over the place. It's down like double-digit percentages, 30, 40, 50%. It's just between teachers and administration, they're just fleeing the profession, and new ones are coming in to fill the gaps. So it's a tough time. So
I have one great thing to that. When I was in grade school, without going into how many decades ago that was, they were shorthanded with at least elementary teachers that I was aware of at the time. I was pretty young. So they were actually coming in and teaching, wasn't just a para thing, before they had their degrees, and then going over to work on the weekends. And of course they would have work they would try to be doing during the week, but it sounds similar to what you were talking about. This has been done in Iowa before. It's just been a long time ago, and they did make it work at the time.
yeah, we've heard from, we had a sit-down conversation with William Penn, and then Rob got some information from, wasn't it Grandview, Rob? That sent something. So, I mean, schools are seeing that there's a need, and they're trying to colleges are trying to help figure out how to fill that gap. So I agree, it's a problem. We're doing all we can. And if people have ideas, send them to me. We are open to, if people know of ideas to get more paras. I think currently we're full, or do we have any openings?
I'm down one.
Okay, Rob, take that back. Rob's down one, but Jason, you're pretty much full.
I'll be good when one comes back.
Yeah, so,
And,
but it's like touch
but
and go.
unfortunately, I mean, that puts me even, right? And then if we're sick or if we're taking care of, I mean, I have some paras that are taking care of family members, and so, I mean, family first, I'm right there with them, I get it. So being even doesn't necessarily benefit me, right?
And we're
Because
just
if I'm down one or two for whatever reason, personal illness, whatever, family, and then I'm down, so.
And we're one
challenge.
move-in away from needing another. You just never know when somebody shows up on your doorstep. And
Sure.
We have to do our best to provide services. That is a bigger conversation that we've even, I hate to keep going on and on, but that we've looked at, maybe it's time that we have to look at our open enrollment. It's time that maybe we are gonna have to start saying no to some of the special ed needs of open enroll, not the kids we already have here, but people wanting to open enroll in, because our system is so taxed. We can't take on other districts' kids. So, I mean, everybody all around us is in the same boat, but we have to serve the kids that move into our district, and we want to serve the kids that move into our district, but we don't have to serve Newton's kids or Colfax's kids or whatever district around us kids if they want to open a role and they need a para, just because we don't have the capacity to do it, or our teachers, we don't have the capacity within their schedules to meet these kids' needs. So, okay, that was.
I mean, I think it's,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, we are Baxter, Iowa, right? Our resource pool is very small, and I think we've worked really hard to try to increase the pay that we pay our paras and how we pay that, but still, it's hard to attract anybody outside the area of Baxter because $12 an hour and $3.10 gas isn't cutting it, right? I mean, so people aren't gonna drive 20, 30 miles for a $12 an hour job. So we can't even get outside of our own pool. And so what you have is what you have. And I appreciate people that have applied, and I appreciate people that have applied and we've hired. Hiring is just that, Rob. I mean, we're putting great people in front of our kids. We're not gonna lower that standard, right? So you do have to find the right people that are willing to be dedicated and put in, and so then the pool potentially gets smaller. So it is a challenge. It's a big challenge for whatever the reason may be, and we're not any different than any other school, but being isolated, being small, location is everything, right? And it does cut your pool way down. So.
Anything else in public forum? Okay, we'll move on to our business items. First item there's building project update.
Ready to take that one off, but it's not quite. They're coming next week to work on those heaters that were leaking. So I know that's beginning of next week. We had a problem with a heater in the gym. It was like 90 degrees the other day when they came in to do dance practice. But thankfully our bill was able to get in there, and somebody like installed something and it was tripped something, and so he realized that's what happened. So he called them, and he was able to swap like some wires, and it works properly now. But he was a godsend there. So that was helpful. As far as the new building, it's really coming along. It's amazing how fast it goes up. Yeah, so that's up, and they're coming next week and John, you can probably speak to this even better than me. They're coming next week to do the insulation on the inside. The cement guys already were there and filled in, and then the electricians are coming next week. The heater comes, I think, Wednesday. Is that? Yeah. So we're looking at like kind of our target circle date of the dads can come the next week. We're hoping by November 1st we can hand these keys off. I mean, that's probably wishful thinking, because contractors don't always get everything right in order and right in time. But no offense to contractors. So especially if you're very fun. They're wonderful. But anyway, so by the time with wrestling practice starting like near the 15th, we're confident that it should be ready to go. They've got like the new bathroom that goes next door. It's connected to the bus barn, so we just use the current fixtures, or the pipes and stuff. But they ordered a new sink and a new toilet, and so there'll be a nice, decent bathroom right there. But we didn't put like plumbing in that new building because they're just right there beside each other. So I mean, it's coming right along. And yeah, John, fill in any more that.
I think that's everything's the plywood and everything to do the wood floor, and it is there on site in the bus barn. So when I talked to Pam, the heaters and that they had in stock in the morning. So good thing. So, I think it's moving along. Good.
I think you saw a bill or two. One was from Story Construction on the bills and that. We're wrapping up the actual building project expenditures. We do have some expenditures that'll probably come in next month. They're supposed to get them here to me on time last week, and that didn't happen. So it's like their retainage fees, and then hopefully we should be able to close that out.
I should mention, this is the
Oh, we can talk this. Yeah.
Okay, so the antenna, it used to be on the 3rd floor, the top of the 3-story building, and then during construction, that got taken down. And then there was Kelly Milligan at Caltech had antenna over on his building, so he just was able to let us use that antenna. And then it's for our bus walkie-talkies. And then the ones that they use, like that they clip on their belts and stuff. And so Kelly is selling his building, so we need to get a new antenna. So we talked to some companies to see like, you know, is an antenna what the right to go, or are these walkie-talkies like out of date? Are there better technology? Well, from what I understand, Eric Pageant did some research for us, and then Pam did some research and Greg to find out like what's the best system for us. Well, if we went with like the new technology, it was gonna be close to like $50,000 for bus walkie-talkies. So we're like, well, maybe we should look at Plan B. So Plan B was to replace the antenna, and that's $7,868. And so we've just gotten one quote for that. So we're not 100% ready to commit, but I just wanted you to know that there could be an expenditure coming, and it's because we have to put that antenna somewhere. And if that building gets sold, then that antenna will belong to the new owner. So I think Kelly's thought was he would take it down, and I wondered about if we could just use the old antenna and put it on the, like they were gonna put it on the sports complex, on the press box, because they just needed to be up high. So that was possible, but they also said that they didn't really recommend moving an old one and using that. So I don't really know all the details of all this, but I do trust Eric and Pam in their looking into this for us. So I just want you to know, just have that on your radar, that may be coming down. And it's kind of expensive. I mean, almost $8,000, but right now, without it, our walkie-talkies wouldn't be able to, they'd be able to talk like right here at the school, and maybe the buses like outside on the bus slab. But when they started leaving to take kids home, they would just have no reception. So we have to do something.
So is that antenna able to power all of our bus walkie-talkies?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. I get, yes. That's just a heads up.
And for the time being, we're still
Yeah,
using
for the time being, we're still using that one. Until I think he's trying to sell the building or has some kind of deal put in, but I don't know exactly all the details.
Okay, move on to principals reports. Jason, you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm just going to kind of touch on a lot of different things. October 1st, we wrapped up our fall fast screening window. And so, as you know, we screen our students fall, winter, and spring. It's a dipstick. It's a formative assessment for us to basically have some data for decision-making around the needs of our students in the areas of reading and math. And so off of those screeners, we have official data day. Our teachers are talking obviously in their collaborative teams about the data and their students, the needs of their students to adjust wing groups, small groups, interventions that they'll do for their whole class based on the need of their whole class. We have kind of those conversations going on, but we started with our ESSA work having more formal data days. And so we had that on Friday last week. We bring in our AA partners. We bring the teachers in grade level at a time for approximately 45-minute conversation. Share about our kids, share celebrations, share needs, build a plan as far as when and progress monitoring, and then a follow-up. So we follow back up with our data 3 weeks after progress monitoring, and then 6 weeks make adjustments to interventions. So had a great data day conversation, all the different teams of teachers coming in here, sharing out our AAA partners over the years, Terry and now Elizabeth, and then Janelle is our our reading consultant. She's a wealth of knowledge. She has so much information to share with our teachers and kind of help them with some decision making as well. So we thought that was a great day on Friday to be able to just get that going, kind of feel like we're into the work that we want to be doing. With that, coming off of that, Janelle actually came the day before to just do some observation about our Reading Wonders program. She wanted to kind of see it in action, our new resource, and see teachers. So she spent pretty much the entire day of Thursday just traveling around the classrooms watching, sent me a huge form of feedback she had to give. I thought, right off the bat, first thing she wrote was definitely observable change in our reading instructional block at Baxter. One to be proud of. She was felt really solid about the rigor that's happening in our class. She gave us just real quick points here. Writing, she saw a lot of writing instruction that's building an excellent foundation for our future grades. So particularly our second grade, some of the stuff they're working on there is going to be beneficial for what's maybe currently happening right now in fifth grade, and we may not have seen that in the past, right? So our program is pretty well defined. It's got a pace to it. It's got a plan to it across the years. Whole group instruction that she mentioned was incredibly rigorous. A lot, I mean, those are the exact words. There's a lot of content in Wonders. Our teachers are juggling that content. They're trying to work their way through that content. She mentioned the pacing by many of our teachers was really solid. She encouraged us, which is always, I know Rob's always talking a lot with his staff, the engagement of students, right? Because it is so rigorous and there's so much content that you kind of end up like, I'm teaching the whole class, but like, how am I engaging this student and that student and every student? So she gave us some good feedback there. Small groups that are targeted to the skills that they're learning in the whole groups, as well as great differentiated groups. So she had a ton of positive stuff to say. She loves to come into our building and see what's happening, but she felt we were, our teachers and our students were on the right track. She had great conversations with students. She talked a lot about that, the students' eagerness to share their writing with her and just have conversations about what they're learning. So felt like we had a couple great days there of just really digging into the needs of our students and really focusing on that. Also coming up, so our counseling department's just rocking it. There's a lot going on, right? So we have, obviously, you all know, we have our full-time counselor, Amanda, our shared counselor with Colfax Mingo, both last name Hoffman, and they're working, they're just always working. Every time I see them, they're with groups of kids, they're with each other, collaborating, planning some things. So our social emotional learning, mental health behavior type programming is really moving forward. Our building leadership teams talked a lot about that. We've shared entry-level building data as far as where we're at with behavior and recognizing some areas, maybe just initially saying, okay, this is our first 6-week data. This is what we're seeing coming through my office or coming through the think sheets and stuff we have with kids in class. And now what, so like, that's our baseline. We're going to check that again in 6 weeks and see where we're at and some of the things we need to put in place. But our counselors have been working hard. Next week we have Red Ribbon Week, which has kind of like come and gone over the years in our school. And so I'm really excited that they're bringing it back. They've got a lot of great stuff planned. I hope everybody knows Red Ribbon Week is traditionally, about drug-free lifestyle choices, and decisions that students make. And so they've really put a focus about making healthy choices so that our students will be more likely to achieve their life goals. And one of the things I kind of stole off of the planning documents that they had was they really wanted to focus a lot on partnering with our community and feeling empowered, students feeling empowered to shape our community around positivity, bravery, and strength. And so our days that week, next week, we have obviously dress-up days every day, and the dress-up days are really focused around choices. So they have some catchy slogans I won't share with you, but there's going to be some really interesting things in our building with mustaches and hats and sunglasses, all these different things that are really focused around healthy choices, avoiding bad habits, avoiding bad choices, the choices they make that are key to their dreams and their goals and their aspirations. We have a partnership with the grocery store. Our students have been writing positive, encouraging messages. They've been making like, I saw one the other day, it was like an octopus and had some catchy thing on it. They're making like 400 of them. The grocery stores, people buy groceries, they're going to chuck one in the bag, and then the community member gets some positive, encouraging kind of like word from a student here at the school, just to, kind of lift up their day. There's a coloring sheet day. There's that they'll have turned in. Miss Carter has worked really hard in creating a unique coloring sheet specific to us. Red Treats one of those days. And then Thursday, 2:40, meeting with Officer Mason Highland, who's going to come in and talk about Halloween safety, because this is all leading into Halloween safety and safety in Baxter. So the elementary kids are going to go down. We're going to have conversations with them and look forward to that. And then culminate the whole thing with our Friday fall parties that we traditionally do. So we kind of tried to tie Red Ribbon Week into the fall holiday time as far as that goes, and just the excitement around that. So they've been really working hard. Thankful for that. I will tell you that, a couple years ago we had therapy dog. We're focusing a lot around trauma-informed practices. Both of our counselors are, our students around the country, people around the country, a lot of stress, anxiety, just some things that our students deal with. And as someone, Sue, I think mentioned earlier, students bring a lot from home with them here that, as we talk a lot about learning, it's one thing to have those Bloom's taxonomy kind of things about learning, but there's that whole Maslow underneath, right? If your needs aren't met, if you're not safe, if you're not fed, if you don't have your basic resources, you're probably not going to achieve. There's some struggles that kind of go there. So our counseling department's really focused on that. Ms. Hoffman, Gabrielle Hoffman, already has a therapy dog in process that she's been working with, and is kind of hoping on some level to include in the 2 schools that she has there. And then we had a community member, a breeder, who offered up what would be, in her mind, a great therapy dog to our school if somebody wanted to take on that program. And so Mrs. Hoffman visited with her, and it was quite the deal. So Mrs. Hoffman's kind of much similar. We're just kind of talking right now, just kind of on a baseline level here. We're working through the program, a program in Des Moines to have that dog trained and to work with students in our school on a therapy level, not service dog, therapy dog. So I just want to make sure we're clarifying that. So that obviously will be a work in progress. It's going to take time, but we are excited, and we were excited that a local community member that is a breeder offered that opportunity up. So Mrs. Hoffman is also incredibly passionate about that and understands the value in those trauma-informed type practices and strategies that'll help students, adults in general that way. So yeah, that's where we're at that way. 2 last things. Parent-teacher conferences coming up. We're actually after Rob. I think Rob's are coming up next week. Rob's are next week, and then ours are after the November 5th date, so the following week, 8th through the whatever that would be, 12, 13. So we'll have in-person conferences, but we'll also offer up online, so they can sign up however they want and help our teachers out that way and help our parents out that way as far as their schedules go. So parent-teacher conference is coming up, which means like the year is moving by quickly. We've been on a couple field trips already, a couple grades, have another one coming up here real soon. So I just think there's a lot going on that feels like school. Our kids are excited. There's just energy in the air this time of year with changing colors and cool temperatures, and our kids are and our teachers are thriving right now. So feel really good about that. Our staffing issues are pretty good and solid right now. The elementary didn't burn down when I was gone for 2 weeks. So, it's just, people communicated, stepped up, and really took the reins and kept us moving in the right track. So that's where I'm at. If you have any questions,
How's it going with Mrs. Crook then? And not
So Mrs. Crook, as you know, came back. We hired Mrs. Crook to be a special ed teacher, and our special ed department is feeling a really solid gain by having Miss Crook, by divvying up that load a little bit. She hit the ground running, and she's done a great job. Her and Anna's really excited to be able to have somebody to collaborate with and talk with about our students, and so it's great to have Bree back just in general, because Bree is a great teacher and a great human being. I think, that's my take on it. And so to have her part of our staff, that just helped grow our staff a little bit. And our kids are going to benefit from having her and the partnerships with her and Anna. So yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Got her room, got her place. She's hit the ground running, has a bunch of kids that just are excited to be in her room and work with her. So it's been awesome.
Hey, Rob.
I could pass, so Jason hit it all. One I know we have to do is approve the FFA trip next month. It's an annual trip out of state, but has to have board approval. And I know this year they're partnering with Collins Maxwell for the charter. I think it's 8 or 10 kids maybe going. I don't have a solid number of the tots. I just visited with him the other day about it. So.
The details are links. Thank you.
Oh, links.
Yeah, that's okay.
Does he have the rest of the kids?
He does.
6.
Lily Van Sice, Morgan Hanson, Julie Damon, Joe Harder, Holly Zeronis, Ashton Kerwin.
So I think we just need to get that, I saw that, so we just need to make sure it's approved.
Will they come back and do a presentation after,
They should
like
be
in
good.
November
We
or
have in the
whatever?
pa-
Yeah.
It's so funny with COVID, I just keep writing notes about how just different, it feels like it was forever ago that we did that, but we
I know.
missed the year. So, yeah, I'm sure they would be happy to come in, which would be
Because that
the
was cool to hear.
December.
Right, December.
Probably would give them time, so I'll say something to Todd, I'm sure they will.
They did they go last year?
I think they went.
I don't
They
think.
did. So we want to approve that before I move on?
You bet.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion to approve the out-of-state trip for the FFA convention. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved.
I did have parent-teacher conferences. Jason hit it pretty well. We're trying for the first time, we're not the same as the elementary, so I think that's important for the community and you guys and the why. And Jason and I both fought hard, and that's why we're gonna compromise on that comp day. So we feel at the secondary level, especially with standards-based and standard reference grading, where you can't just say, oh, my kid's getting an 82%. We don't even know what an 82% of what means, but we need to have that feedback and conversation. So waiting all the way until we did last year, it just felt really late. Talked to my staff, they felt it was really late. We don't have quarters anymore, so we're just with standards based. It is a semester. Kids are working the entire semester, redoing, working, getting the learning. In the perfect world, it's a whole year, but we have to cut that at a semester because it's new classes and such. So the feedback is extremely important, I think, for parents to hear that, what standards we're working on, the curriculum. So we're this next week, Tuesday, Thursday. We typically, I appreciate and really like the way we pre-COVID did the open house. Everybody's in a room, you just kind of walk around. It had a great feel to it. After talking and knowing where we're at, and I think we're going to go back into the classrooms. It was about split with our staff, which way they liked it. Most of them, the best point I heard was this way is better, so then I can prepare. So I get my 20 parents that have signed up. I know when they're coming and I can prepare that feedback when I'm sitting. I have 100 kids and I'm trying to fumble the papers and know. So it's next Tuesday, Thursday. It'll feel weird for our staff because always for 20 plus years, we've had the comp day after the conferences. We will go Friday, then it's off a week. So our comp day's in between, and then Jason's will go the next week and have to work. So we were just talking, my teachers will get it on the back end. His teachers will get that comp day on the front end, but it's just where it lands. And there's lots of districts, if it wasn't truly K-12 building, you wouldn't blink that their conferences are at a different time, but it's new for us. So that's the why. I'm just bouncing around. I guess I'll roll in. Wendy Andersons, who's our new curriculum director, has been working with me and then our staff, just getting our PLC structure set. Really appreciate her delivery to our staff about GVC, Guaranteed Viable Curriculum. I know we've heard that a million times, and she's done a fantastic job of that. You have to understand our staff is at a lot of different places. So we have new staff that's trying to get a grip on their standards and then develop priority standards. And we have veterans who are all the way down developing assessments and, learning targets and changing lessons. So one thing that I think is kind of the misnomer a little bit is every curriculum area for us, the standards are looked differently about how many standards there are. So if you take PE, then don't quote me on the exact, but I think it's 5 standards in PE. Well, when you have your standards, then you develop priority standards. PE really isn't developing priority because all 5 standards are the priority. If you take like Kristen in language arts at the middle school, I think for a typical grade, maybe 30, 35. So the idea is we should teach to those 35 standards, but we're not obviously here going to be able to focus on 35. So we know there's the standards. So then teachers meet in PLCs and content area to develop what those priority standards are. There's no magic number from the state or anything about how many those are, but those are the deep, dig deeper and narrow, not little bit and wide. Sue talked about higher, deeper thinking skills like that. Asking teachers in those first couple meetings, I would say most teachers have 8 to 10 they're probably working on per semester, and then some carry over. But it just looks very different from content to content. So as we have parents coming in this week, I think that they could get confused with that, because if you look on JMC and you're looking at what you're being assessed on, what those standards are. So there's lots of standards, but we're only assessing and giving feedback to parents on those priority standards. So I just think we've really entrenched ourselves in standards-based grading, and it's going really well. It's the communication, the feedback that makes it better. So that's why we wanted to meet sooner. I want to put a plug in. It's so funny. I wrote down shortage of coaches, and that was before we hit on paras and teachers. I mean, it's a crisis. We're sitting there with no junior high wrestling, which is a week and a half away, and no assistant middle school girls basketball, that is about 2.5 weeks away, and we don't really have answers for this. So the shortage is real across the board. You know, listen to Zachary, who I would come in and fight for my program too, and I just want to, and Julie, I know it's not discussable, but I do have some knowledge about that. So on the football side of things, I think the only thing we purchase every year out of our general fund is our protective equipment and footballs. So every year, just the protective equipment and footballs. Everything, if you see anything else, we're fundraising or working with the Booster Club on that. But I mean, it is an expensive endeavor. On average, we have 45 kids, 7, 12, and I'll bet it's $700 a kid to outfit them. Now, granted, some of that equipment can roll over time or the jerseys stay on or whatever. But if you look at a kid, he has $700 worth of stuff on him, and you add that up, it's 30,000 close. So just FYI, but I didn't want, you know, we would give up all, I mean, we need staffing. We would give up whatever to bring another teacher in, to bring paras in. As you look at budgets, I just didn't want to, you know, it's been a long day about a couple of things with that anyway. And lastly, and maybe the most important thing here is, I really appreciate, we had a good conversation with Michael and Christy's husband, about safety in school. 100% agree, but I think sometimes we all go to reactive, and I've never in education time feel the mental health stresses as we have on kids right now. It does feel normal coming back. That's the good thing. We're just getting our feet underneath us with feeling like we're back at school and we're back in class and we're walking through and watching cool lessons and giving feedback to teachers that need support, dealing with problems in the office, which is great. I mean, it feels like a year. Last year did not feel that way, but with that comes, I mean, we're hearing things from kids that you wouldn't think. I mean, we're talking good families, good kids. I mean, they're coming with baggage and just struggling. And I met today with a support group that can be another reach out. Some of our problem that I'm learning, and I've learned more about it, is we are in that little Baxter. So Marshalltown may get it, Des Moines may get it, the Metros get it, and there's kind of that outreach. I think the more numbers in a school, those resources go to those places. Travis is taxed. I mean, he is taxed, and it's a concern. I don't have any answer. And if we don't get that figured out, we're going to be reactive to a lot of things here at school. And we have to be sometimes. I get that. But the proactive is, how do we teach and help these kids with what they're dealing with, both in school and out? And it's a major concern right now. So that's what I got, ending on a positive note. Questions for me? Sorry.
Any questions for Rob?
I'm just gonna throw this out too, that is it the beginning of November, our counselors and Jason and Travis, and I might go for a little bit. It's called Iowa Best Symposium, and it's put on by the Department of Ed in partnership with the University of Iowa, and it's all about mental health and social emotional learning. How can we help these kids? And so I actually wasn't gonna go because Jason was gonna go, but then I just watched a webinar from the Department of Ed, and I was like, you know, that actually looks really important. So I'm clearing my schedule so that I can go, because just like Rob said, we have got to find a way to help these kids and staff and families. I mean,
it used to be, I can tell you, maybe even as quick as 5 or 6 years ago, that was the great thing about Baxter. I'd meet with Travis or back to Lisa, and we'd know the 4 or 5 kids that were struggling. We'd get them counseling time, and we'd get small group, and we'd meet with, I mean, we could handle it. I mean, when those become double digits and in the 30s of kids out of 200 that truly are disengaged or have something going on, you can't just say, well, Travis will fix it, because that was what it was for the longest time. And, you know, as Jason had it at 1.5, and I sat here in COVID and said, you just keep that 0.5, Jason, we'll be fine. And now I wish I would just go back and rewind and say, let's go a quarter, because we could use it.
What sort of communication goes back to the parents if there's an
It
issue?
depends. It's a great question. So there's the situation where we can meet with kids, and I'm learning a lot about this with Travis. So we can meet with kids, and then it's really, where do you build the trust with helping that kid? Because we hear, I mean, I had a girl, awesome girl, cry today and say, please don't tell my parent. I said, you didn't even do anything. I just don't want her to know I was in the office. And it's like your heart. I mean, okay, I won't, so there's that fine line. Anytime a kid is in danger of themselves, threatening something to harm themselves or others, we get parents involved. If they're just struggling, suicidal thoughts is kind of one that can get a little gray to start. We usually move pretty quickly on that. If a parent is supportive, you can get a lot more help sooner than we have parents who are not supportive and will take care of our problems at home. Get it? That's awesome. I'm glad you do, but here's the places you need to call. I mean, you need to get, and then we ran into one today. The kid, we get counseling, outside counseling, and they just won't talk. They won't open up. They won't even, if they don't want the help, that's also hard. So it's just coming at us from lots of angles.
And I probably would add, I think it's fair to add and important to add that our teachers take on these roles too, right? I mean, because we are teachers, because we are nurturers by nature, by what we do, why we choose to be where we're at. And so we aren't in our building, and I'm assuming the same is for Rob, we aren't in a situation where we just, okay, well, you just go over there and deal with that person, and I'm not giving you any time, or I'm not building a relationship, or I'm not even here to listen to you, I'm just here to teach math and reading. I mean, our teachers are stepping up in roles, at least on their level, and they know where their level's at, that they can talk to kids and try to be there for kids and support kids and get them the help they need. So I will add that I appreciated that that our counseling department put some stuff out to staff too, like, hey, visit with Julie. Here's what our insurance in our school offers you for mental health support as well, because they are taking on more and more roles. They are taking on, there is right, wrong, or different, right? I mean, the pandemic affects everybody differently, and what the expectation maybe is or perceived to be of teachers or whatever maybe. And so I appreciated that our counseling department reached out to our staff and said, we're not necessarily here to counsel you. We'll be your friend. We can listen to you as we would, all of us would to them, but there's stuff available to you to help you out, because confidential type things that can help you. And so I know that our counselors are visiting with students. I know that our counselors some parents are 100% supportive of that. Some parents are like, no, like Rob said, we don't want our student visiting with you. That's their choice. We appreciate that. We do, I mean, our counseling department, a school counseling department does work groups, right? If we have consistent issues, behavior or relationship issues, we'll pull that group of kids or a group of kids that have a similar and discuss relationships and how to build healthy relationships with your classmates and types of things to help out that way. But safety, kids that are expressing safety concerns, whatever, those are talked with outside of the county, with the parents and with those types of things. But kids are sharing their concerns and just the stresses they have in their lives right now with our counselors for sure, and our teachers are there to try to support the best they can and help kids and be aware that kids have these things and that it affects their learning. And so how can I help you today? I visited with a kid today that's like, you and your teacher, I'm talking to them, like, what's your word when you're feeling like you're going to explode? So your teacher isn't also like inadvertently escalating that, right? Like I've worked with this student for a couple of years now, just on like, hey, just tell me, catch or basketball or something, so that I know I'm going to step away, let you step away, so we don't have a major blow up in class. You can come back down and then we can get back to learning. And so we're just trying to help kids through that, because some of our students have stresses that push them up over the top.
Do you think this is all resulting from?
I can't necessarily say that. I think, here's what I think. I truly do, because we were in this, right? We were talking about mental health for helping students before COVID. No doubt about it. That was the path we were taking as educators. That was the path we were taking as a state Department of Education. we were moving forward with mental health, right? I mean,
We
March
had that on our,
13th,
yeah,
right before the
priority.
pandemic, and we left, the DE's there with our ESSA visit, and we ended with, you're doing the right work, English and math, reading and math. Let's get moving with the social, emotional, mental health, behavior aspect of your ESSA plan. You have to have that in there. What are you doing? We left all excited and jazzed, go. Went home for 5 months, came back, a new year. Now we're just trying to give grace. We're trying to support where we can. And we feel like right now we're taking those steps that are a year and 6 months away, you know, behind us, that we're trying to move forward with that. So I can't, but there's no doubt that, you know,
It
there's
exacerbated it
any sort of
probably, but
situation that maybe, you know, changes a parent's life. I'm not working. That's going to get trickled down to a kid all the time. I mean, it just is.
At my level, I can tell you it's right here.
Oh,
These two things, 100% probably contribute more than COVID. I was talking to a mental health agency today, and they gave me a really good example that, you know, 5 years ago, you go into the ER and you broke your leg, they're going to get you in, get you fixed, and get you out. Well, now if you go into the ER and you break your leg, they're dealing with the 6 people who have gunshot wounds and another one who's on life support. I mean, because it's just, if you don't, and I said this, if you don't answer the questions like it's a red major problem, they just kind of give you the support to move you out the door. So it's sort of like you have to do all these things to get noticed and to get on some, besides just a counseling appointment every 2 weeks. I'm talking about inpatient. I'm talking about what that person really needs, that this might not be what they need. And you just, they almost laugh at you when you tell them that, and it's like, that's our kid. I mean, well, you have no idea what else is out there that we're, you know, dealing with. But, you know, it was a good example today, but it didn't help me any. I just understand that everyone's taxed. We're taxed. They're taxed. Everybody's taxed. And we just run each day and try to make it better. Hopefully help somebody today.
Okay. Let's move on in the agenda to our participation in the Iowa Drug and Alcohol Testing Program.
This is just to test our bus drivers, so this is not a requirement.
The same program we've
Yeah.
used in the past.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Do we have a motion to continue our participation in the Iowa Drug and Alcohol Testing Program for the 2022 calendar year?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Next item is the, what we had a public hearing on earlier is our 2022-2023 district calendar start date. I think there's probably much discussion on that. It's the earliest that the state allows, which they said
Tuesday.
done in the past. So, do we have a motion to approve August 23rd, 2022 as our start date? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Next item is a 28E agreement with GMG. You talked about that
Yeah,
last
this is
month.
just the
Michael.
official, we just need to approve it and then have you sign it. So this is for our special ed director. She's been actually coming and already started working with us and our staff, and it's been going great so far.
What's her name?
Kim Stein.
Okay.
She's actually also the superintendent at GMG. Did I explain that last time?
Yeah,
She's
I
like,
think they had to approve it.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
obviously must have approved it.
so she's just part-time with them though, like 2 days a week. And she's like their volleyball coach and like AD, and she's a million hats.
Yeah.
So you may have seen her the other night.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but she's been working really closely with our special ed staff already, so it's been nice to have her.
Any other questions on that? We have a motion to approve a 28E agreement with GMG for 20%. Baxter, 1 day a week, special ed director.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Third.
Motion is second. All in favor, aye. Pose same sign. Motion's approved. Next item is open enrollment. Open enrollment in application.
We have our, Nikki Marie Sapp, or by her parents, Stephen and Ashley. I guess. Oh, Julie says it was a paperwork issue only, so she must go here
I think
already.
she's-
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
Must have just come here and then realized there wasn't the right paperwork.
Do we have a motion to approve the open enrollment in application as presented? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Open enrollment in application is approved as presented. Doesn't look like we have anything under facilities, grounds, transportation, personnel.
Security company. We have a loss of power here, so I need to, I want to go soon and see if a breaker church or something. Did you have a motion and a second on the open enrollment?
Oh, we did. Corey and Debbie. Thank you.
Okay, our next item we're down to is our district enrollment for this year.
Yeah, so I just added in, that first document is one, I guess you've had, well, clearly you've had it for years. But the good news, what I wanted to tell you is we're up, our in-house kids, we're up like 11 kids that live in our district. So this first one is just information, but then if you go to the other documents, like if you click on the one that says certified enrollment and service enrollment by business managers group, that one compares us to districts around. So there's all the AEAs. So if you click on Heartland, you'll see where we are. And it's good. I mean, we're up kids. So that's great. From we're at last year, total served, we were at 440, and this year we're at 451.3, so that's really good. And one of the things that we're very excited about is our open enrollment has stayed pretty steady. We're actually, I think, we're down a couple just because of graduation and new kids coming in. But our in-district kids, the kids that live in Baxter, is starting to go up, and so we're very excited to see that. Now, I don't know if it's, housing and or just people have more babies. I don't know. We're just very excited that we are seeing that trend. Because if you look at the other schools on that list, not everybody has the same trend. So it's really a good place to be. So we were quite excited with slow, steady growth. That's what we're trying to do. Just keep slow, steady growth.
If you look over the last 2 years in that last column there, this is something that doesn't happen very often, and that our certified is almost exactly as our served, just because of the number of certifieds that have moved into the district over 2 years. And so, I mean, over 2 years, our increase is almost 40 students. That's just amazing to me.
Anybody have any questions or comments on that for Nicole? That's what we're after, positive growth. Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, not a lot. I mean, a lot of the stuff that Jason and Rob have talked about is the same stuff I would talk about. So just remember, we've got the School Board Association convention coming up in November on the 18th. So let Julie know and she'll get you registered. And then Kim is working on dinner plans.
Is anybody not gonna go to the convention so I can sign you all up?
And just heads up, they've also talked about that depending on how the election goes, we'll register 2 open spots. So we can, like, depending on who wins, we'll register that person, but we'll save the spots. But just past history, we always, our whole board, and I go and Julie goes, so our whole board team goes to the School Board Association meeting as a group. And then, we might divide up and go to different breakout sessions, but we always go. And then Jason and Robin, their spouses, and all of our spouses typically then join us that evening for dinner. So it makes a nice day and a nice bonding time for all of us. So anyway, so save that date. And then let's see. Oh, just a heads up, like Jason and Rob and I have been working on that collective goal for our goal was to increase staff effectiveness. And so our first step was to interview all the staff. And so we're just wrapping that part up. And so then we have our data compiled, and then we're going to analyze it and look for trends. It reminds me a lot of like the dissertation work, where you have to look at all the transcripts and then figure out what are the key words that keep coming up. And so we're just getting ready to come to that part where we start looking at the data. And then we'll work with Wendy and with the AA on that, and then they'll help us to take that data. And then the next step is, okay, so now what do we do with it? How do we implement that? So just so you know, I just want to keep you updated. I told you I would. So we're working on that, and we're excited to be getting to the next step. And then also just those are dates that are just kind of corresponding from last year as far as upcoming events, the annual facility tour on the 16th. And if somebody has a question about these dates or something, we can, check your calendars, but these are the dates from last year, or these are the corresponding dates from last year. And then the work session, the last couple of years, we've broken that into 2 half night, or instead of an all day on a Saturday, we do 2 nights. And that seems to work. The first night we seem to talk about academics, and then the second night we seem to talk more about budgeting. So those will be coming up. And then just so everyone is clear, just remember we moved the March board meeting a week earlier because the third week we'd be on spring break. And then the April board meeting, the same thing, we have to move it up because you have to certify the budget by April 15th, and it would be too late to have a board meeting. So those 2 board meetings move up. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it seems to be going pretty well. Kind of that peak of sickness, we've kind of plateaued and kind of back on the downslide of that. It's been great to see staff back. We're really excited. We have district cross country tomorrow. Some real opportunities that we've got some kids who could maybe go on. That would be really exciting. Then, of course, we have our playoff state football starting Friday night. And so that's really exciting. We've shared the link on our Facebook page. It's not the Jimmy and Pat show. They had an agreement with a different place, so they're sharing the link with us, but people can watch it from home because it's like a 3-hour drive, so it's gonna be a long night. But we're really excited, and yeah, so it's just wrestlers or basketball. I don't know. I keep seeing little kids running past here, some dads. So anyway, yeah, I think things seem to be going pretty well. So if you have questions, I mean, I know you guys all do reach out to me when you have questions or anything.
Is the drop-off zone, is that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The drop-off zone's going really well. I mean, honestly, I don't get out there as much as I was early on. I'm just pulled in a million directions, and no sooner do I think, okay, it's time to head out there and there's a parent in my office or a phone call or a teacher or whatever. But the parents have all responded really well to it. Kids are dropping off there. Parents are dropping their kids off there. We had a big heavy rain a week or so ago, maybe early last week. I came in and the drain was plugged and there was easily 9 inches of water standing for the whole drop-off zone. And some kid got that really early. And as I'm walking up, trying to think, how am I gonna this kid swings open the door and jumps out, and I mean the water was to his shins, right in. Shoes are soaked, socks are soaked. I'm like, okay, so I'm looking for Pam. We had to she had to find the drain. It's just the tree litter from up the street washes down, plugs up our drain. So
Do you think
we were
there'll be
able
an issue
to.
with ice at all in the winter?
It's
It
been
has
an
been.
issue in the past, yeah, because once that ice is
Every
over,
year
then we end up
it's
with
an
issues.
issue.
But
Last year
it's been great. I personally think. I mean, everybody's great in that everybody's very open to it. Everybody's playing nice, following the rules, getting their kids, dropped off, picked up, being patient, trying to pull out. We had one issue where a community member asked me, we have the rollout stop sign. Didn't think much of it because we don't use it as much, right? We have Allie out doing crossing guard during recess, and like I said, I try to attempt to be out there as much as I possibly can in the afternoon to help kids cross the street. So we haven't been using the sign, but sometimes the sign gets turned to where people coming this way can see it, even though it's on the side. So they stop, and they stop, and they stop, and then other people don't want to stop. And so somebody's like, is that sign supposed to be telling us to stop or not? So I kind of like try to make it a point to go out and make sure it's not facing that way so that people don't think it's a stop sign. And then sure enough, the next day it's facing that way. I'm not sure who keeps like turning it around, but it hasn't really left its spot because the grass is all dead. I just keep turning it and then it gets turned back. So it was, some community member asked me like, are we supposed to stop there now or not? Because typically it's in the middle of the road.
I wondered myself.
Yeah, so I try, but yeah, I think it's been going pretty well. Somebody can tell me different, but I haven't
How
had
is it over
anything.
there? Are there people that drop off on that?
We
that's
still have people that
preschool.
drop off on that side. We still
Okay.
have people that come down this way, which is intriguing to me because that's a one-way that way. They drop off their kids,
And then
they cross the street.
Oh,
I've seen people pull up right there, drop off their kids, and then do a U-turn right in the middle of the road and go back the other way. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but most people are playing nice and trying to accommodate that, and I've had zero complaints from anybody. Nobody's called to say this is a problem, so.
Good.
They're really good about it. I mean,
Yeah, that was a good
Allie
partnership.
comes in the afternoon and tries to, she tries to monitor this crosswalk the best she can, just to kind of help kids get across the street. And today, the garbage company was very patient while we crossed 250, 300 kids across the intersection while they were waiting. You know, like they just sat there patiently, wanting to go pick up garbage while we're like flooding kids across the street. And preschool kids don't move really fast, so but we got them.
How about the angle parking on the west side? I mean, we talked about switching.
We talked about switching it.
Does
It was gonna take a lot, right, financially or whatever, to
Yeah.
grind off the paint and switch it. Again, I don't have many
Exactly.
problems. The preschool parking seems good for the preschool parents to drop off. At least, again, nobody's complained or said anything. I still think people probably pull in the bus area to drop off their kids like in the afternoon, preschool time or whatever, but mostly teachers park in that angle parking. We haven't had too many issues.
And they're basically parked before.
They're usually
kids
parking
start.
absolutely by 7:40. Most kids, I don't know if Deb's had any complaints from bus drivers or whatever about that parking, so it seems
all running
to be, it
pretty
seems to be
smooth.
running pretty smoothly, so.
Okay, good.
But, you know, there's always.
But it's crazy, like, at the end of the day, there's
They're
cars
lined up.
backed up past our window.
Oh, yeah, they're all the way down. They're all the way
But
down.
people
Yeah.
are pretty patient.
And they're pretty patient.
Yeah, people are really pretty good about it. They just take their turn and pull in and pull
It's
out.
kind of funny because early on the kids would like walk so far and then they, you know, my parents aren't here yet. And now the kids are like, and I'm like, you don't really have to walk all the way. Like, I prefer you not walk all the way down the road past Hoskins' house to try to find your parent. Like, just wait here with me.
They'll come up.
They'll come. I promise they'll be here. But the biggest congested days are when there's a bus or two or van or two parked
Sure.
because, you know, our activity buses are parked. So that, then they can't pull off. They're kind of out into the road.
Yeah.
But that's, again, they've been very patient. So.
Anybody else have anything?
No.
We have a motion to adjourn. Got a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Those same sign. Meeting's adjourned.
Rob and Jason, if you guys happen to see a custodian on your travels, would you let them know that we got a call from the security company saying that there's a power outage somewhere? I think maybe a breaker has been tripped or something, and now I see his kids running through here. It makes me wonder.
I'll swing down like Dumont, because